Okay, when you think about motorcycle clubs, there's this image, right? The roar of the engines, the leather, that whole sense of brotherhood on the road. It's got this definite allure.
It really does. But often, behind that image, there's a world that's, well, pretty hidden from view.
Exactly. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain a bit on one specific club, the Highwaymen Motorcycle Club.
Yeah, we've got this document that really goes into their history, their activities.
Yeah.
It's quite detailed. Our goal here is to sort of unpack that, pull out the most interesting parts of their story for you.
Right. We want to get a feel for what the Highwaymen are all about. And what grabs me is this contrast. Their reputation now is an outlaw club.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look back and they had these surprisingly mainstream beginnings. It's quite a shift.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And then there are all the layers to their activities over the decades, which, well, they've definitely attracted a lot of attention, let's say.
No kidding. Okay, so let's get into it. Where does the story start?
It starts in Detroit, Michigan, back in 1954. That's when the Highwaymen Motorcycle Club first got going.
Detroit, 54.
Okay.
And right near the beginning, there's something kind of surprising, isn't there?
There is. In 1955, so just a year later, they were actually sanctioned by the American Motorcyclists Association, the AMA.
Wow, okay. The AMA, the big official governing body. That's not what you'd expect for a club known as an outlaw group today.
Exactly. It really highlights how things changed in motorcycle culture around that time.
Yeah.
This whole idea of the one percenter started emerging then.
Ah, right. The one percenters. Explain that a bit.
Well, the story goes that the AMA itself said something like 99% of motorcyclists are law-abiding citizens, implying,
That there's that other 1%.
precisely. And clubs like the Highwaymen, they sort of leaned into that. They embraced the one percenter label. It became almost a badge of honor, a way to say we're not like the mainstream AMA riders.
So it was a deliberate choice, rejecting the AMA and carving out their own identity.
It seems that way, yeah. A conscious move away from the conventional image. Maybe the AMA's statement even inadvertently helped create that divide.
Ah, interesting thought. So they embraced this outlaw path. Did the club stay small?
Oh, no, they grew considerably. Became the biggest MC in the Detroit area, actually. At one point, the numbers were supposedly over 400 members.
400. Wow, that's substantial. And not just in Michigan, right? They spread out.
They did. Chapters popped up in Alabama, Florida, Indiana, Kentucky, Missouri, Ohio, Tennessee. Quite a footprint across multiple states.
Okay, so they've got the numbers, the reach. What about their look, their symbols?
They definitely have a memorable patch. It's a winged skeleton wearing a motorcycle cap and a leather jacket.
A winged skeleton. Okay, a pretty classic biker imagery there.
And their colors are black and silver, but it's really the motto that stands out.
Oh, yeah. What's the motto?
It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, though we ride the highways in the shadow of death, we fear no evil, as we are the evilest motherfuckers on the highway.
Whoa, okay. That's blunt.
Extremely blunt. It's often shortened to HFFH, which, for clarity, apparently stands for Highwaymen Forever, Forever Highwaymen. But the full version, well, it makes a very clear statement.
Yeah, no kidding. It really hammers home that us against the world outlaw self-image.
Absolutely. It leaves zero doubt about how they see themselves, sort of positioned outside, maybe even against mainstream society.
Okay, so with an image and a motto like that, it's probably not surprising they've had run-ins with the law over the years.
Not surprising at all. The document we're using points to some major investigations. There were significant ones in 1973, 1987, and then a really big one in 2007.
These weren't just minor things then. These were serious law enforcement efforts.
Seems so, yeah. Substantial operations looking into the club's activities.
And going back to the 70s, there were actual convictions, right, for some pretty violent stuff.
Yes, in the early 70s. Members were convicted for things like bombings and raids, attacks on rival motorcycle clubs, their homes, their clubhouses.
So serious inter-club warfare, basically. Violence and turf disputes.
It certainly paints that picture. A very volatile environment, definitely. Rivalries could clearly escalate.
Okay, then fast forward to 2007. You said that was a really big one, led by the FBI.
Yeah, that was a major crackdown. May 5th, 2007. The FBI arrested around 40 members and associates, mostly from the Detroit chapter.
40 people. That's huge. What were the charges?
A whole range of really serious stuff. Racketeering was a big one that usually implies a pattern of organized criminal activity.
Okay.
Then there was murder for hire, assault, police corruption, cocaine trafficking, vehicle theft, even mortgage and insurance fraud. A very wide net.
Man, that covers a lot of ground. Did they find anything during the arrests and
They
raids?
did. The raids on homes in the Detroit clubhouse turned up 29 illegal firearms, assault rifles, shotguns, handguns,
Yeah.
a significant arsenal.
Definitely adds weight to the charges. And this investigation wasn't quick, was it?
No, it took about 2 years, and they used some serious techniques.
Right.
Wiretaps were involved, listening in on conversations, and informants. People inside the club feeding information to the FBI.
Informants. That's always risky territory in these kinds of groups.
Extremely risky. The document mentions one informant was actually murdered.
Wow.
Just highlights the danger involved. Another informant name was James Wallace III.
High stakes indeed. And it didn't stop with just the club members, did it? You mentioned police corruption in the charges.
That's right. In 2008, so the year after the big raid, indictments came down for 4 police officers, along with a Highwaymen member.
Police officers charged with corruption related to the club.
Yeah. The Highwaymen member, Sean Donovan, who was apparently already locked up on stolen property charges, got hit with drug distribution charges, marijuana, and Vicodin. And the 4 officers faced corruption charges. It suggests some level of compromise or connection within law enforcement.
That's definitely a disturbing angle. Were there other incidents around that time?
There was another arrest mentioned in 2007 in Lansing, Michigan. A member named McDaniel got picked up in a connection with running a chop shop, stealing vehicles, and taking them apart for parts.
So adding organized vehicle theft to the list.
Seems like it. And eventually, even their main clubhouse faced consequences.
The Detroit one, what happened?
In 2010, the authorities seized it through forfeiture. The reason given was that it was basically being used as a drug den.
Okay, so losing their headquarters because of illegal activity, it really paints a picture of a club operating way outside the lines. How did they fit in with, like, other biker groups in Detroit?
Well, interestingly, they're banned from the Detroit Federation of Motorcycle Clubs.
Banned. What's a federation?
It was an organization set up back in the 70s, specifically to try and mediate and stop the turf wars between different motorcycle gangs.
Ah, okay. So the fact that the Highwaymen are banned suggests what? They wouldn't play ball? Or were seen as too problematic?
It certainly suggests they remained outside those efforts to, let's say, establish some kind of truce or order among the clubs in the area.
Right. Now, shifting gears slightly, there was a really unexpected detail in the document about a specific member, someone pretty famous, actually.
Ah, yes. James Blake Miller. He's widely known as the Marlboro Marine from that very famous photograph taken during the war in Iraq.
That guy. The Marlboro Marine is, or was, a highwayman.
According to the source, yes. A member of the Kentucky Highwaymen chapter.
Wow. That's unexpected, and it adds another layer, doesn't it?
It really does. The document also mentions that many Highwaymen members are veterans, and some, like Miller, might be dealing with things like PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress.
Exactly. It makes you think, doesn't it?
Right.
About who joins these clubs and why.
Yeah.
Maybe that sense of brotherhood, that shared identity. Maybe it resonates particularly strongly with guys who've been through military service, especially combat.
That's a really crucial point. It complicates the simple bad guy outlaw narrative. There are individual human stories, struggles. Veterans looking for connection, perhaps.
It certainly suggests a more complex reality than just the headlines about crime might imply. You have these individual experiences feeding into the group dynamic.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've seen the Highwaymen start in Detroit, have that weird early brush with the AMA.
Then consciously go the 1%er route.
Right. Then grow into this big multi-state club with a really intense image and motto.
Followed by decades of serious attention from law enforcement, culminating in that huge 2007 FBI crackdown.
Yeah, with charges ranging from violence and drugs to corruption and fraud, leading to convictions, forfeiture of property.
And yet within that, you have these other elements, like the connection to veterans, the James Blake Miller story. It adds nuance.
It definitely does. It shows this constant tension, doesn't it, between these outlaw clubs and the rest of society. And it makes you wonder about the appeal.
What draws people into that life, into that identity.
Exactly. Which kind of leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. What does the story of the Highwaymen, with all its twists and turns, actually tell us?
What does it say about people living on the edges, maybe feeling pushed to the fringes of society? What's the pull of that kind of rebellion, that intense group identity?
And maybe how do we square that image, the tough, hardened outlaw biker with the reality that these groups are made up of individuals who might have complex histories, like veterans dealing with the aftermath of war.
Yeah, it's a good reminder, isn't it? That behind the patches and the headlines, even in groups that seem so far outside the mainstream, there are always complicated human stories happening.